water and so forth. If it's snow, it's the same thing. It's the amount of time it takes for the snow to come down from the top and reach the bottom and fill the frame, so you've got all the particles in place. Obviously, the slower the effect, the longer the run-up is needed in some cases. So that's a hit that you have to take. When you render the effect, you'll only be rendering from frame 0 generally. And when you actually render out the effect, it'll sit there, you know, in a network render, for instance, for, you know, maybe a minute or so, just actually generating the particles up to frame 0. Of course, obviously, another thing you can do is cache them up to that point. That's another way of approaching it. So, as I said, time on is -400. That's just basically to make sure that, you know, that we're always going to have drag on, and time off is 800. Again, the same thing. I'm just making sure that we've got drag, which is always on, and, you know, from way back before 0 and way after 0. So we've got that range working nicely. Okay, so let's have a look at the flows that we're actually using here. And you can see that in this case, we've actually got 2 flows. They're sharing a delete operator, which you can see here is in its own little event, and that's just to keep the number of nodes down. There's no real massive benefit from doing this. It's just a neatness thing. Now, the reason why I'm using 2 different flows is that it's in some cases it's easy to actually have flows branching off into subflows and having each subflow have different effects. And in fact, you know, you could have approached this effect in that way. In other ways, it's sometimes just as easy to split off the effect into a separate flow, as you can see I've done here. We've got snow large and snow small, and that's just so that, you know, basically we can tweak each one individually and we can get the snow the way we want it. Now, what I wanted in this particular effect was to have 2 types of snow. I wanted large snow, which was obviously larger, more fluffy. Because of its fluffiness, I wanted it to fall more slowly. I wanted it to be affected by drag a little bit more. I wanted it to be affected by the wind a little bit more, and so forth. And then I wanted to have a second type of snow, snow small. That's denser snow. You could say it's denser and more heavy. Therefore, it, you know, it falls faster. Drag has less of an effect on it. The wind has less of an effect on it. It basically falls more quickly to the ground. And that was it, really. I just wanted those 2 types. We could, you know, differentiate it even more. If you look at real snow, you can have lots of different, you know, gradations of snow, all the way from a very icy, small snowflakes that fall quite quickly, kind of like rain, all the way up to, you know, super fluffy flakes of snow that blow around in the wind and, you know, take a very long time to hit the ground. They just fly around with virtually no weight whatsoever. So in this case, I simplified this down just to 2 different types of snow. So let's quickly run through snow large. We'll see what that does. If I move this over here a little bit, and I'll just minimize this window down a little bit so you can see what we're doing a little bit more. Because of the run-up, if I actually turn on this snow, we'd actually have, let's have a look at the birth here. You can see it's very slow, this snow, so it takes 200 frames to reach a full effect. And because of that, I've actually started the emission of our snow on frame -200. Now, because of this, if we had a reasonable amount of particles being shown in the viewport, let's say 20%, 30% of our total particle count, which you can see is very high here, it's 50,000 particles, over the full duration, it might take quite a long time just to get the run-up just to frame 0. And when it came to my final rendering, just being able to turn on the snow and not having to wait, you know, let's say 30 seconds for that run-up became a desirable thing. So what I've actually done is I've gone to the viewport. Here you can see in the source event, and I've set the viewport count as being 0%. So if I turn on the particles, you'll see that I can scrub and nothing happens and no particles are shown. And that's because obviously we're showing 0% of the particles in the viewport. It's not really rocket science. Now, if I change this to a very small percentage, let's just try 5. You'll see that we now have some particles, and you can see I've got them displayed as dots here. I'll just change them very quickly to, let's try ticks just to make them a little bit more visible. And you'll see that, you know, they're falling down, and if I press play, there you go. So you can see our particles are falling downwards, and the majority of them which are striking this collision object here are being culled. So when they hit this object,